a company called Southwick that does a lot of research covering all aspects of the sport fishing industry. And one of the most recent ones that I just read, the numbers have went up, and there's 2 categories that are contributing to the growth, and we're pushing this 50 million mark now. One of them is the high school fishing team phenomena that has swept this country, putting a huge amount of emphasis on 14 to 18-year-olds and the impact that they're having on the industry, the future of the industry. There's a real excitement in this area, and we're seeing the needle move because they're drawing in adults. I spoke to a couple of people here. The adults are getting more involved because they've seen an interest and a desire and excitement with the young person in their life. And at that age of 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 is incredible, an incredible age to get involved, and that they're moved in the sport for the rest of their life. There's an excitement there, and that is moving the needle. The other area was women getting involved in fishing. We're seeing another that it was flatlined for many years, and we're just starting to see another rise in that area again. And I was watching Larry Smith Outdoors this winter, and they were in Otter Tail County, and he was interviewing Barb. And I'm sitting watching the show, and she was there with a bunch of gals doing an ice fishing event. And I finished that, and I said, I got to get a hold of her. I seen the excitement, the enthusiasm, and so I gave Barb a call. I said, would you be interested in being one of our guest speakers at this year's workshop? And it took about, I don't know, we talked about 3 or 4 minutes, and she's done all in, and she's excited. She is doing something, the excitement to see women grow and get into the sport. And she's doing a whole bunch of things to make this happen. Come on up, Barb. This is my first opportunity when we were here to meet her one-on-one. I seen her on television. That's how we met. And her thank you. It's all yours, kiddo. Go for it.
Well, I really appreciate you including the women's perspective in this thing. I think it's really important, and it's really nice to see women in the audience, because the future has never been better for women who are looking for a career in this industry. And I wish I could say that I picked a career in this industry and I've been successful, and that's not quite how it worked for me. The career almost picked me. I mean, it has a life of its own, and I'm just hanging on. So let me tell you a little bit how I started. I fished as a kid. I remember my dad took me to a winter fishery at the VFW, and I won a prize for the smallest fish. And that just stuck with me. I just had so much fun, and it was such a great memory. And we always lived by lakes. So after dinner, me and the neighborhood kids would ride down and we'd fish. And then in the summers, I got to spend my summer in a little cottage on the lake, and we would just sit on that dock, and I'd catch 100 bluegills, trying to get 100 on the same piece of work. So, it was just this thing, and I'm sure you all have it, that thing that's under your skin, and you can't go by water, like Eric said, without looking at it. And I have that too. So when I was in high school, I really enjoyed writing, and I was planning on going to college for marketing and journalism. But then I got sidetracked and had a baby. So now I'm like 18 and have a baby, so things came to a screeching halt. So I needed something to support a family really quickly. So I went to nursing school, and I graduated from that and started working as a nurse and raising my family. Me and my daughter, had this nice life, me as a nurse, and it was working out, and I hated it. I just hated it. I was inside all the time, and that claustrophobic feeling. And when I was growing up, my dad was a police officer, and I'm going to be 60 this year. So when I talk about me growing up, that was a long time ago, especially for things that have to do with women in non-traditional roles. So I remember when my dad was a police officer, I remember my mother, when she first got word that women might be joining the police department. And I can remember what she said. She goes, "If you get into a fight, I don't want some woman with long fingernails coming to back you up." That was her rationale back, and that was a long long time ago. So when I was working in nursing, I was figuring out, this really isn't for me. You know, what is going to be for me? So I met another woman who was a police officer in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I'm like, what? And here, even though I grew up with my father as a police officer, I never considered that that was an option for me until I met this woman. And I said, and I've said it thousands of times since then, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So I moved down south, I got a job, I was working as a cop in Oklahoma City. Worked down there for 5 years. Now my daughter was going to be in 6th, 7th grade, and I decided I don't want her raised down here, we got to go north. So I got a job at the Madison Police Department. And their training and everything, and the community is awesome. Loved it. She went to high school there. I love my job. I love being a cop. And then there was an accident, I got hurt. So I had to retire early. So I was like, dang, I love that job. So I didn't really know what I was going to do then. One of the good things about it is when you retire, when you get hurt, you get a pension. So it's not like I had to go to, you know, McDonald's to flip burgers to pay the mortgage or the food bills. So I had some flexibility. So I lived on a farm that was kind of abandoned, and I turned it into a federally licensed petting zoo and had school groups come in and had all these animals, you know, peacocks and llamas and all sorts of things. It was awesome. I was really enjoying it. Well, that work gets really hard, and when you have 2 artificial knees and you're trying to do all that stuff with your back, then eventually the doctor says, I don't know what it is you're doing, but you better stop because now your back's going to go. So I happened to start getting back into fishing. So I started ice fishing. And I had ice fished as a kid. I kind of got away from it. Now I kind of got back into it. There was one other gal I knew that liked to go, so we used to go out and go ice fishing. And we were always the only women I ever saw on the lake, period. This was in Madison, Wisconsin. You'd go to Lake Mendota or Lake Wabisa. And I actually got a permanent shack, little permanent shack down there, so I was there all the time, so a lot of the people knew me. And every time I just couldn't believe that all these people coming out ice fishing, not one of them was a woman. And I loved it so much, I thought, don't they know? Don't they know how great this is? So I decided, okay, I'm going to plan an event for women ice fishing. So through a local outfitter, I rented all these shacks. And all the rods, they gave us a ride out. Well, this was before social media. So the only way to find people to come out and go to this event was to call up my friends. Hey, you know anyone who wants to go? You know, oh, sure, I'll go. So, you know, we get this big group. We have about 5 or 6 shacks, 4 or 5 in a shack. Well, as you can imagine, it's a wild party. Everybody's drinking, and nobody gives a crap about fishing. You know, me and one other gal are like, come on, you guys, and they're just partying and having fun. They don't give 2 cares about fishing. And I was like, that's not what I wanted. So later that winter, I met my sister called me and said, hey, I met someone who knows someone else who ice fishes. Oh, really? Who is she? So we ended up meeting. And we actually went to Lake Superior. And we had a bunch of other gals invited to go. We were going to go up to Ashland and fish the bay. And everybody else backed out, so it just ended up being her and I. And it was the most glorious day of fishing I have ever had. I have caught over 12 species that one day. And it was one of those situations where you couldn't keep a line in the water. We had tip-ups going, tip-downs going. We had one rod with a fish on it, grabbing the other rod and pulling that one up. It was complete chaos, and it was just the most fun thing ever. I'll never forget it. And it was so fun to enjoy this with this other gal, and since then I fell in love with Lake Superior. I just absolutely love that water. Of course, I've never had another repeat day like that, but I still have high hopes. So, but we got to talking, me and this gal, and I said, hey, do you think maybe if we got some of the people that fish together. Maybe we could get together and have another little fishing outing. And she goes, yeah, well, I know a couple of people that fish. So then that spring, and that was about 13, 14 years ago, we all met up and fished the spring walleye run over in Nakusa. And, we weren't that skilled. Most of us didn't have anyone to fish with that was more skilled than we were. So we were like kind of flailing, and trying to figure it out. And that was great. We caught walleyes, we had a good time. And I said, well, gee, do you think they'd want to do like fishing and camping in the fall? And she said, well, yeah, I bet they would. So now it kind of spread out a little further, and 13 years ago in October, I had the very first fish camp. I had that at Buckhorn State Park. Not one woman had a boat, there was 20 of us. So it was just camping and shore fishing. And the first day, like torrential storm and straight line wind blew all the tents away. It was just horrific rain, and all we were catching was carp, but we had a great time. Fast forward that same event, 13 years to this October, there were over 70 women there. There were so many boats that we didn't have room to park them on all the piers that there were. We had 3 resorts. There's $60,000 boats, $40,000 boats, brand new boats, kayaks, small boats, pontoon boats. And these women are in it big time. So go back to how that started. After that first fish camp, I started trying to get more events ice fishing and decided, well, maybe they don't know because they don't know how. So I became an instructor for Becoming an Outdoor Woman program, and I taught their ice fishing program for a few years, and I started having, little ice fishing classes myself. I thought, well, once they know how, then they'll love it for sure. And that was the case. So that kind of started that way. It ended up morphing into a club where we could all kind of connect together as be part of this club. And when social media came around, and all of a sudden there's Facebook, here it's a way to find more people. And it's a way to have a forum where you can all discuss and share information. And that was huge for us. Now, it is hard being a woman in the fishing industry. And if you meet someone, you don't know them that well, hey, yeah, you want to go meet on the river? Well, a woman is going to be thinking, well, I don't know you, and is this going to be safe for me? So what we were able to do is provide an environment that was safe. It was the women, everybody knew somebody, and it was prearranged stuff where they were going to be completely safe. They were going to be in groups and learning from each other. The amount of hunger for information was huge. I mean, a lot of the people here, these young kids that are winning tournaments, and the amount of information they get from their families and the people that they're fishing with. A lot of women didn't have that. No one was telling them. Well, I remember when I first started fishing, when I finally caught a walleye in the summer, I'd crack a bottle of champagne. All right, I caught a walleye. And now, fast forward, multiple 30 inches. But it took a while for me to gain that knowledge, whereas somebody fishing with a core group of skilled anglers, those skills develop very quickly. So with my organization with women, we're able to provide this instruction. And a lot of them have fished when they were kids, and then they came back, and they are good, and they're getting good. And how their skills have changed in the last 12 years, or 14 years, is unbelievable. So, bear with me here. One of the things I started doing then, after, these women start getting involved, and I start looking at companies. Okay, I'm using Jiffy Augers. So I go to their website. Well, there was no women pro staff. There was no women pro staff anywhere, And I thought, well, that's not right. You know, there's a bunch of women out here now. They're buying stuff. And so I wrote to a couple companies and said, hey, how come you don't have any women on your pro staff? And Jiffy was the first company that offered me a position. You know, it was like, okay, we'll let you use this auger for the season, but then you have to give it back. That was the deal that I got, and I was thrilled. So I was like, you know, I loved it. I loved the Jiffy auger. I was loyal to it. All the other women now were going to use Jiffy augers because they were supporting us, and it was a great product that worked well at that time. So as we went along, that one winter I went to a boat show, and I met a guy that was a Lund dealer. And we got to talk, and I kind of told him what I was doing for promoting women in the outdoors. And he goes, well, I can get you a boat. You want a boat? I can get you on the Lund Pro staff. I said, really? And I said, I'm not ready for a boat. And I walked away. I was moving at the time. I thought, where am I going to put it? Do I know enough? You know, geez, you know, I'm just used to not having a big new boat. I was a little intimidated by that. And I said I wasn't ready. Well, the next year came by, and I kept fishing and working with other women and producing these events. And I called him up and said, okay, I'm ready. And he said, well, what kind of boat would you like? And I'm like, what are the options? He goes, I'll find one. So he picked out Lund Impact. I think it was the first year that Impact came out. I think I had a 115 horse Mercury motor, and it was like, oh my gosh. You know, and I had boated my whole life. It's not like it was the first time I ever was in a boat. We grew up boating and water skiing, and so it was just having this responsibility of this new fishing boat. And I got to tell you a story. So the second time I had this, the first time I had it out, you know, I just checked it out, and I called a friend and said, hey, I got this boat, come and help me check it out. So she puts me out, it goes up, park the car, and I'm there, and I'm looking, and there's all these big bass beds with huge bass in them. And I'm like, holy smokes. Well, in the meantime, the boat is drifting. And all of a sudden I hear, the prop is hitting these big rocks. So I'm like, oh, you know, so I trim up and I look, and the wind, it's real windy, the wind is blowing me over to a small dam. So it's like, shit. You know, so now I have the motor trimmed up all the way, and I'm like, so my friend comes back down and she goes, what are you doing? I said, and I only knew how to run the trolling motor with the remote control, but I left it in the truck. I said, go get the remote. So now I'm digging out that foot pedal and plugging it in, and I'm looking at the buttons on it, and I'm thinking, con? You know, I didn't know. So then I'm laying on the floor, pushing buttons, trying to figure it out, and finally I'm getting close to it. Finally I get the rope, jump out of the boat. Just start walking it back to the launch. So as I'm walking the boat back to the launch, my friend is walking down now, and she sees me walking the boat, but she's laughing. So as I get close to the launch, the water gets deeper. So now I'm doing this. You know? So I hang on, I'm holding on to the boat, and I said, hey, drive me in with the remote. So she never used the remote before. So she's driving this boat in, and now she's going around in circles. So now I'm holding on to the side of this boat. She's driving me around, laughing, having a great old time. And that was one of my first experiences with my pro staff boat. And, you know, this is a long time ago. But it just goes to show you what it was like from then in the beginning until now. And it's been quite, and I'm never the one that says, oh, I'm a big pro, I know so much about fishing. I'm going to talk about my failures. And that was one of the most embarrassing moments of my fishing career. So once I had that boat, I reached out to another, quite a famous lawn pro named Marianne Husky. She was a popular tournament angler in the day, And she was going to teach me how to troll for walleye on Green Bay. So we're out in her boat. I spent a lot of time with her. She really mentored me. I learned really a lot. And then after that weekend of trolling, I drive home and stop at Fleet Farm. Cost me $600 for trolling gear. You know how that is. You do it one time, you're catching all these big fish. So I'm kind of like this person that will learn something or get some information, and I turn around and I feed it to these women in this group, and they're all really like, really? We could actually take our boat out on Green Bay? Yeah, and it's like it was this whole group that really didn't have access to this information. And now that they were getting access to it, they were all in. And we continued to grow and develop as a group. And it got bigger, and it got bigger, and we got better, and we got better. And all of a sudden, our skills are not bad. I started tournament fishing then, and I thought, the reason I did it because I thought tournament fishing is like taking a college course in fishing. And you practice, 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 and then tournament day, it's the test. I thought a great way to learn. So I was the first all-woman team to fish the AIM series, the AIM Weekend Walleye Series, the first year that they had that. Me and Wendy fished the whole season. And we didn't do bad. I mean, we caught fish all the time, but we're competing against, the big pros fish that. It's not like it's a little ma and pa circuit. The year before that, we fished the Midwest Walleye Series before that went down, and we actually took fifth one time out of about 80 boats. So I was kind of impressed with that. But the amount of financial drain tournaments are, and it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I just wanted to get to be a better angler. So a couple more years go by, and I have a couple more pro staff positions, and this group of mine is growing. Now we're up to over 300 people from 5 states and Canada. We'll do about 13 or 14 events a year. We have to cut the biggest one off at 70 because we don't have room for any more than that, but more would come. This summer I took 35 women to Canada. We go to sleeper shack trips, we do classes, we go smallie fishing up in Sturgeon Bay. So as this time goes on and everyone gets better, the women are now the instructors for the new gals coming in that are just learning this. I sponsor a female tournament angler who's fishing the bass circuits, and I want to be able to support her, and all the other gals are rallying around her. She does really well. She places high in the state circuit, whatever, I don't even remember what she's fishing. So then I started doing a little more writing. I started writing some stories that got published in magazines. I was a guest on a radio show, and the next day the host calls me up and says, "Hey, do you want to be my co-host?" I said, "Sure, it's a lot easier being on the radio than it is writing, just talking, So I was a co-host for many years on this radio show, and I loved it. I kept writing, and I joined the Association of Great Lake Outdoor Writers, which is an outdoor communicator group, which really opened a lot of doors for me. I won awards, first place awards for some stories I had published and for some radio shows that I had done. And you get to meet a lot of professionals in this industry, and it's really helpful in terms of having that piece added to your career. And I think that you can't have enough of that when you're young. If the ones of you that are still in school, you have to be able to write. You have to be able to write. You have to be able to communicate. Those skills are so important, to be able to articulate and tell a story to get other people engaged. That's what we're doing. As representatives for these companies and as educators and as leaders, you're wanting to get engagement from people. And how you do that is you tell a story and you make them want to do that. And that's really a big part of my job right now, and I really like it. I enjoy it quite a bit. So I've become kind of this watchdog, and I kind of make a lot of people mad because For example, I looked at some of the biggest ice fishing catalogs that are out there, and there wasn't one photo of a woman in the whole catalog. Now I got 300 women that are buying ATVs, augers, suits, sleds, shaft. They got it all. They're spending a fortune. And you couldn't put one frickin' picture of a woman in the catalog? You know, what is up with that? So I started something else called the Women Ice Angler Project. And I got together some of my media friends. I got a Christine Hauptman who writes children fish on kids books, and Hannah Stonehouse Hudson, who's a photographer, and a couple other pro anglers. And we started this media thing where we went out to get good images of women ice angling. So now we can give them to these companies and say, now you don't have an excuse. Don't tell me that, you know, Betty Lou wasn't in the office the day of the photo shoot, so you don't have any women. Because that's what the excuse was, you know, well, she wasn't there that day. Well, you know, women want to feel like they're represented. You know, they're spending a lot of money. They want to be in this game. They want to be in the conversation. You know, these companies have to start talking to men and women. The way they use their language. You know, you can't talk to everyone like they're a bunch of men, because there's a big segment of the population that's women. So I'm the one that's pointing it out to them, and sometimes they don't like that pointed out to them. So I'm not always the most popular pro staffer. The other big advocate I am for is with gear. If you're going to make a men's ice fishing boot in 2,000 grams of Thinsulate, why are you going to make a woman's ice fishing boot with 600 grams of Thinsulate? Tell me that. Does that even make sense? And then you wonder why women don't want to go? You know, you're setting us up for failure. You know, okay, we'll make products. We'll make products for women. Everything is pink. Just make it pink, call it women, it'll be good enough. Right? No, and it's crap. You know, you read the labels on this stuff, and you pick up one of these pink rods, and it's like a freaking 2x4. You couldn't catch anything on it, you know? And it's like, so once we start getting this really good quality equipment in the women's hands, then, you know, just like all of us, our success rate improves when you're using good stuff. All of a sudden now you have decent clothes, and you're not cold, and you're enjoying it a lot more. So I have seen this, you know, in the last 14 years, it has come a long, long way. And it happened so quickly. Just think how much things have changed since the advent of social media. So at one of these Glow conferences I was at, I was talking to some people from the U.S. angling, and the gentleman before mentioned fishing for the United States. Well, I too had an opportunity to fish for the United States on the first ever women's match fishing team, fishing in a world championship in Hungary. And you know, match fishing is something that nobody does here. It's really difficult. It's totally different than anything that I've ever seen before. And we had to work hard both with getting our skills up and fundraising and getting the awareness out and this was quite the experience. The hooks are the smallest hook that you could ever imagine. I mean, unbelievably so small, there's not an eye on the end of it. It's just a little widening, so you got to tie a snell knot. And then I don't know how many familiar are you with bloodworms, but try threading a single bloodworm on that tiny hook. It's like darn near impossible. Plus, you're fishing with a 25-foot cane pole, so you got to fling it out there, and you're catching these weird fish. I don't even know what they are. And then you got to swing them back to you, catch them, and put them in the net. So these other countries, this is all the fishing they have. This is their main competitive fishing. It's huge over there. England, their teams, that's their full-time job. And these, you know, all sorts of, these other countries come in, they have all the gear. And we're just 5 anglers they plucked out of somewhere just to represent the U.S. because no one else did. But I tell you, what an experience. Because we fished our tails off. We worked hard every day in pre-practice. We got better and better and better. I was covered in blood in the tournament, and not fish's blood, my blood, from swinging back these little catfish that you have to grab. You know, so I was all full of these little spiny cuts. And so we get to the closing ceremonies, and people are having dinner, and we're talking, and, you know, different groups are going up. I didn't even really realize what was going on. And then all of a sudden they said the United States. And everyone got quiet. And our team was supposed to walk up and walk across the stage. And everyone stood up and gave us a standing ovation. And it was like, they got how hard it was for us. It wasn't hard, but they saw how hard we were trying and what an accomplishment it was just for us to get there in the first place. So that kind of experience was just unbelievable. And it's one of the experiences I wrote about in this little donated prize here that I gave. There was that magazine, the Badger Sportsman magazine, which I happen to be on the cover of. I wrote an article in there called Hungary for Fishing, and it kind of talks about that experience. So, you know, it wasn't for me, way too time consuming. I'm still learning regular fishing. Like, one of the things I really enjoy now is salmon fishing. So I've been fishing Lake Michigan, which is, I don't know how many people here salmon fish, but if you haven't, and you do it once, it's like crack. You're going to be addicted. And so for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been going out there, and I have my boat all rigged out with downriggers, and have just kind of trying to get better at that. It was the same kind of thing, you know. You start out, you're trying to figure it out, and you're not catching any. Then you finally, after 4 or 5 times out, you get one, and then your friend, first time in the boat, because she's one of the new anglers, is hitting it over the head with the net, trying to get it in, and you get all, you're swearing, and it's like, oh my God, the first one, you know, it's just like so much emotion that goes into this. But now, we're a lot better. We go all the time, and I started fishing tournaments. I got my captain's license this spring, so now I was the first captain and female crew that ever entered these salmon tournaments in Sheboygan this summer. And all the other women are in charter boats, and we're the only ones in a 19-foot Lund. And I heard some of the gals up in the bigger boats are like, are they going to be okay in that boat? And their captain said, they're going to beat us out there with that boat. So that kind of experience and being able to be the voice to tell everybody about that. I mean, there was a lot of people that don't even realize how close salmon fishing is. Now we have big groups of women that are going over there shore fishing. So they're posting pictures all the time of big salmon like this. And it was like all this information has come out and been shared, and now they're finding all this success. And I'll tell you what, I worked as a cop, and I worked as a nurse, and I've changed more lives in the fishing industry than I have in those other 2 careers combined. Because you get someone in the outside, and especially these women, they're finding strength they didn't know they had. They're gaining confidence. They're learning something. They're able to do things and achieving things that they didn't think that they were going to be able to do. And it's amazing to see some of the transformations that come when, you know, first I get a phone call. Well, I don't know if it would be right for me. I really don't know how to fish that good. I don't know if it's the right fit. Come on, it's the right fit. Nope, you know, there's a lot of people that, so you got to talk them into coming. And then they get there, and they get so many, everyone welcomes them with open arms, and it's so supportive, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like almost like a support group for female anglers. And by the end of it, it changes not only their fishing skill, but it changes the rest of their life, because now that confidence is carrying over into all sorts of other life, areas of their life. And that's kind of why I do what I do. I say I get paid in goosebumps, but I make money at this. I could charge a lot more than I'm charging for these events, but I don't want it to be about making money. If I charged a lot more, women would be able to afford to go. If they can't afford to go, I'll pay for some of it for them. You know, it's about creating these opportunities that they wouldn't have had if it wasn't for this program and some of the stuff that we're doing. And it's amazing. We have widows. We have, our oldest woman is 82. Our youngest one is in a freshman in college. And they all come together under this umbrella of fishing. And it's just improved everybody's life. And I'll continue to be the one that's going to work with companies and say, this is what we need. This is what I want you to do. This is what the right thing is to do. And here's an example. Somebody sent me a video yesterday. Oh, here, what do you think of this promotional video for this big campaign we're doing for high school fishing? So I watched the video. You probably saw that video that came out. All these nice young men there saying stuff, all this time. Not one girl in that video. He said, well, what'd you think of the video? I said, well, I'll tell you what I thought. I thought there should be some women in there, some girls in there. What's the matter? I want those thoughts in these companies to be in the forefront of their mind, not an afterthought. Oh, dang, we didn't bring any women in. We forgot all about it. I want that to be in the forefront of their mind. These people are spending a fortune. It's changing their lives. They're making the world a better place. You know how many of our women now volunteer and coach high school teams? A whole bunch of them. The whole program in Wisconsin started by the gal I tournament fished with AIM. These women are not only grabbing the bull by the horns, but they're giving back to their communities. And the companies can't shortchange them any longer. Don't you think so? Isn't that, it's not asking too much, I don't think. So that's my role. You know, I facilitate these things with the women. I work with the companies, and I want that to be a positive working relationship. I just don't want to be kicking them anymore. And, you know, so they're really receptive about ideas. They're asking for input, and things are getting remarkably better. You know, every year it's better and better, both with the technology and user-friendly gear for women. So, what else did I want to just acknowledge a couple women here. For those, how many here are on that Target Walleye email list news blast? Do you get that? Did you recognize Maddie's picture from that big Minnesota State record pike she caught the other day?
Catch and release.
Catch and release record? Next to her is Angie Scott. She's here from Nashville. She's my partner on the new radio show, The Woman Angler and Adventure, that we're working on together. And actually, today's the first day we ever met in person. So that's going to be really exciting. And there's a lot of women's groups out there. There's Wisconsin Women Fish. There's the Women Anglers of Minnesota, Ontario Women Anglers. There's fly fishing groups, and we're all networking together now. And it is a real case of we're better together. And the future is bright for any of you women that want to get involved in the industry. And if I can help you in any way, if I can be a resource of you, please come up. I'll give you my contact info. I'd be happy to work with you, work on your fishing resumes, you know, whatever it takes. I'm here to help you. You know, I'm on my way out. You guys are on your way in. There's still lots of work to do. And it's going to be a great, great future.
I don't think you're on your way out, Barb. Far from it. Great job, Dale. Real pleasure working with you. Great job. See that young lady over there?
Yeah?
I seen her. Are you with the Minnetonka fishing team? Yeah.
No.
Where? Brainerd. You're part of the Brainerd team. Okay. No wonder she's at the Brainerd table.
Yeah.
I thought she was infiltrating some information from the other team members. Now, again, this was fantastic information, and like I said earlier, one of the growth segments of this sport is women getting into the sport. We're starting to see this grow, and what you gals are doing is it's a phenomenon. Getting more female involvement in the sport fishing community. It's amazing. And just really thankfully you joined us. It's a blessing to this business, to this industry. And but the two of you teamed up, you're going to make some headway, some major impact. The industry, let me put it this way. I know some of the industry is listening. You just keep pushing. Keep pushing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.